Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
Choose your next words carefully, Leonidas. They may be your last as king.
You bring the crowns and heads of conquered kings to my city steps. You insult my queen. You threaten my people with slavery and death. Oh, I've chosen my words carefully, Persian. Perhaps you should have done the same. This is Sparta!
The legend of Sparta's 300 is one of history's greatest battles. King Leonidas and his force of 300 elite fighting men stand up to the invading Persian army at Thermopylae in 480 BC. Vastly outnumbered, the Greeks held back the enemy in one of the most famous last stands of history. The film is based on the 1998 graphic novel by the legendary Frank Miller. Miller's graphic novel was brought to the screen by Zack Snyder, one of the few visionary directors working in Hollywood today. Snyder has a unique visual style, using a combination of dynamic compositions, highly saturated color schemes, and visual effects. His films don't always reach the heights they strive for, but at least he's reaching for something. I'd like to talk a little bit about Justice League: The Snyder Cut. After its original release in 2017, many fans found the film an inaccurate representation of Snyder's vision. Snyder was forced to quit the project due to family tragedy. Joss Whedon took over as director, but what resulted was an unholy mess. Soon after, the hashtag #ReleaseTheSnyderCut became a cultural phenomenon. The Release the Snyder Cut movement finally gained so much momentum the studios gave the fans what they wanted. This is a big win for fandom. Now back to 300. Gerald Butler gives a stellar performance as Sparta's legendary King Leonidas. Butler maybe shouts a tad too much, but everything in this film is turned up to 11. This is not a less is more, but a gargantuan historical epic with a graphic beauty you rarely see in a Hollywood movie. I'm not a fan of green screen, I much prefer practical effects, but it works wonderfully in this context. It's like Frank Miller's artwork is ripped from the page and transplanted directly onto Hollywood film. The battle scenes are what really set this movie apart. The film was groundbreaking, and when you have a film so ahead of its time with regard to technology, they usually don't age well. Even so, the simple beauty of a Spartan warrior against a beautiful backdrop, or the dreamlike scenes of the otherworldly oracle, are more than just great cinematography. They're genuine art. Is this film the most right-wing movie of all time? Critics described it as the definition of fascist and Islamophobic. Iranian officials were also adamant the movie was secretly funded by the US government. At the Berlin International Film Festival, it was panned at a press screening, where many attendees left during the showing and those who remained booed at the end. Compare this to the general public, who gave it a standing ovation at the public premiere. The story is the tragic nature of heroism. The Spartans are a paradox. They were slave owners and in many ways fascist, but they also prevented the fall of democracy. They were like the special forces of the ancient world. Small Greek city-states are attacked by a much larger totalitarian empire, but refuse to bend the knee. Whatever you may think about Sparta, this is a film about fighting a foreign enemy that wants to take away your freedom. Identifying Sparta with modern-day superpowers is, for me, a disingenuous argument.
Our arrows will blot out the sun.
Then we will fight in the shade.
From an historical perspective, 300 is a crucial point in the birth of the Western world. The combination of Athens and Sparta is what gives us our modern-day democratic republics, and stopped the expansion of the Muslim world. The fact that this enduring legend has had such an impact on our modern world underlines the importance of this story. 300 captures the spirit of ancient Sparta and represents the Battle of Thermopylae as a clash of civilizations. The Greek historian Herodotus viewed Thermopylae as a battle against Eastern centralism and collective serfdom, which opposed the idea of the free citizen of an autonomous Greek city. The fact that a few men could stand up against such overwhelming odds is what makes this one of the greatest stories ever told. This film is primarily for men, but it doesn't mean that the female characters are diminished. Lena Headey, pre-Game of Thrones, gives a strong performance as the Queen of the Spartans, whose power is not so much physical, but mental. She is equal to any man on the political stage. Spartan women had an unusual level of rights for the time period, so for all their faults and toxic masculinity, the Spartans weren't sexist. With regard to the manly meter, Spartans are probably the most elite soldiers that have ever lived, the best of the best, and the sacrifice of the 300 for the future of Western civilization earns them their 5-star rating.
It is not a question of what a Spartan citizen should do, nor a husband, nor a king. Instead, ask yourself, dearest love, what should a free man do?